Swapping out a volume or tone pot on your guitar is actually pretty easy, and today I'm just going to give you a quick overview of how to actually do that. I'm Dave with Stringing It Together, and let's dive in. So this is the one that I'm going to be working on right here. You want to make sure you remember it when you flip it around. And before we do this, I want to make sure that you know you should always give it a bit of a spray before, just to test that out, because sometimes all you need is a little bit of contact cleaner. I did the video last week on that, and this is actually just a continuation. It didn't work, so now I'm going to have to swap it out, but you can check out that video here if you want to try that. So first you want to figure out what pot you need to replace it, because you don't want to change the pot value or the pot size. So there's always going to be a number written on there. This one is 250K. If you want to learn more about the different pot values, then you can check out this video, whichever way it is. You can check out that video, but this one is 250K. And then there's also, you want to make sure that it's the right height. So you want to measure that. And then you also want to double check that the spines on here are going to fit with whatever knob you've taken off. So you want to put that on there and make sure that it's going to fit. Some have these split on them and others don't. Some are just like this, and they just have a little Allen key, something that you can stick in there to hold it on. So the other thing you want to look for is either an A or a B. So a matter of preference, but typically A is for volume and B is for tone. If you're ever unsure which is which, you can also download my guitar wiring cheat sheet in the description below, put in your email, and it's yours. It'll just, all those little things that you have to remember, you can just refer to it. It's pretty helpful. So let's get soldering this on. It's always a good idea to take a picture before you start pulling things off here. Make sure the tip of your soldering iron is clean. Get it nice and hot. And then just start removing. Trying not to touch the wires. There we go. I realized my hand was in the way for that one, so I'm gonna have to figure out, maybe I'll go left-handed to get this last one off, just so my hand's out of the way. There we go. And I've unscrewed it already from the back. Careful, sometimes it can be hot. So there's a few different ways to do this. First thing you want to do is clean your tip. Now some people like to hook the wire into the hole there, which works, but I find the difficulty with that is when you want to take it back out, it's hooked on there and it kind of makes it annoying, and I just feel like it's not as good of a connection. So what I like to do is first fuse a layer of solder on here, so it should be hot enough that the solder melts on there, so it kind of covers up the hole. And then once you have these pre-tinned, then you can just stick them into the hole. So just like this. And we're just going to follow the same procedure for this output here. Get it so that it fuses over top of the hole there. And we'll do this ground connection here. What you want to do is fuse the metal as opposed to actually just melting the solder with the tip. Basically I just put a little blob of solder on there, and then I pulled out my helping hand station, which I have another video for, you can check out here. And then I'm just going to hold this on here. So a couple of quick things just to recap. Make sure you take a picture before you start taking everything off, especially if you don't have a strong understanding of how your guitar electronics work. Number two is when you're soldering, you're not actually just dripping solder on there. What you're actually doing is creating a chemical reaction between the solder, the copper wire, and whatever you're soldering it to. So whether that's the lug or the back of the pot, what you're doing is heating up the metal. You're not touching the solder to the soldering tip. You're heating up the metal so that it will actually have almost like a suction or attraction reaction to the solder. So you'll know when it's right, because that solder will want to go to that hot spot that you've created. If it's not hot enough, you'll know because it'll want to repel from the actual metal. Okay, so keep that in mind and don't worry about playing around with it. The only thing you have to watch out for is not holding the soldering iron too long on the pot, because you can actually ruin the electronics. So I wouldn't say there's any hard rules, because it depends on the temperature of your soldering iron and the tip and all that. So just hold it on until it melts, and don't hold it on any longer, and you should be fine. And if you want to learn more about guitar wiring, then I highly recommend going to the description, downloading that guitar wiring cheat sheet. Just put in your email and you got the download. It's yours for life, and you can always refer back to it when it comes to A versus B pots, pot values, everything, testing pots, even all the way down to different switch wiring combinations, or the most common switch wiring combinations. So download that, and you can also check out my guitar wiring for beginners playlist on YouTube here, and that'll cover your basics of a pretty strong foundation of everything that you need to know. So give this video a like, hit subscribe, and that's all for now. We'll see you next week.